Welcome. Hello, everyone. Hello, and welcome again. Welcome again to yet another Love Talk with Keisha. Welcome again to another Love Talk with Keisha. Looking forward to some interesting conversation. Yes, some conversation that is going to most definitely, just cause you to think, challenge you a little bit, all of those wonderful things. So, again, welcome. I just want to say to start off, haven't done a love talk with Keisha in a couple of weeks. A lot of things been going on. But I will be doing a couple of Friday sessions, a couple of Friday shows. Because in next month for September, instead of doing the first Saturday, I'll be doing the third Saturday. So it'll be some Friday shows between now and the third Saturday of September. But tonight, welcome to Love Talk with Keisha, and I want to talk tonight about healing through vulnerability, being vulnerable through the experiences of just getting back on track from whatever you face, for whatever you're going through. Just want to give my opening. Welcome to Love Talk with Keisha. This show is based on experience, growth, and maturity. I am your host, Lakeisha Jenkins. I am a coach, I'm a speaker, I am an author, and I am a mentor. I love connecting through all of my services, which involve life transformational coaching, prayer calls, purpose calls, t shirt ministry, and any of my books. This show is being presented on behalf of Self Love Ministry, which promotes self love awareness in regards to us being able to love ourselves unconditionally, especially through our challenges of seeking and needing to heal. We render conversation pertaining to discovering our brokenness and seeking new beginnings. We discuss issues surrounding healing in all types of relationships. The lies, which are the people's opinions often made against us. The lust, which is the pain and the trauma and effects that we often endure. And lastly, the lessons, the things that are meant to help us heal, recover, and survive. We render truth, testimony, transparency about our self journey and our self discovery. During the show, questions are welcome through the comment section. And after the show, your letters, suggestions, questions are welcome by email at lovingmefirst_self-love@yahoo.com. That is loving me, the number one, ST_self-love@yahoo.com. So now let's have some love talk. Okay. So today I wanted to talk about, and God has confirmed that this was the title for me to talk about, even after I decided to talk about healing through vulnerability. Why did I decide to talk about this? One, because it had a lot to do with the conference that I did 2 weeks ago. I'm going to touch on that a little bit. But then, as we look around in the world and we see so many people going through so many circumstances, whether it's past relationships, whether it's divorce, whether it's separation, a breakup, um, whatever it is, grief, another big one, um, financial change, loss of a job, whatever it is, healing plays a part of so many different things in our life. And people don't realize or really don't grab onto the fact that you have to start somewhere, whether that's forgiveness, whether that's being being willing to let go of your past, not forget, but let go of your past. Challenge yourself in ways that you never challenged yourself before. Do some different things. Create a different mindset. There's so many different things that play a part when we are talking about healing and connecting that with vulnerability. First, I want to just read the definition. I chose the definition for vulnerable because this is what it basically means: in need of special care, in need of special care, support, or protection. Because we're talking about our feelings, our words, and our emotions. So when I'm talking about healing through vulnerability, I'm talking about people being able to know and understand your feelings, your words, your emotions, your expressions, all of those things. Because it's one thing that when you're in a bad spot and you're trying to talk and people don't listen, or you're trying to talk and people grasp the wrong concept. But it's another thing when you are recovering and when you're recovering and you want people to really take to your words, take to your emotions and take to your feelings. I'll give an example for me. When I decided to, and I have a little visitor tonight, when I decided, okay, go back on the bed. When I decided last year, when I decided last year that I wanted to move past, dead end relationships, toxic dysfunction, all of those things. Um, I realized this week with creating this topic, like I was I had to decide to be vulnerable. I had to decide that I was going to trust um, three things. First, that I was going to be vulnerable with trusting God because there was doubt that set in. Okay. Then I had to be vulnerable with men because I had been mistreated in past relationships and I did not want to create that mindset where every man is a bad man or just because a person has done something bad or hurtful to me that I cannot forgive and move on. And then lastly, I had to be vulnerable with myself. Why myself, you may ask? Because of the decisions that the decisions that take it back in the room. Take it in the room. Because of the decisions that I had made that I was dealing with. Um, whether I felt that those decisions was poor, whether I felt that those decisions were um, done out of lack of knowing, lack of knowledge, I had to be vulnerable with myself. So vulnerable with God was one, vulnerable with men was two, and vulnerable with myself, three. So those are just some examples of when we're talking about feelings, when we're talking about words, when we're talking about emotions. That's just a little bit for you to just grab onto. Okay. Now, now I want to go into a couple of a couple of notes that I have wrote down pertaining to my conference that I went to 2 weeks ago. The conference that I went to 2 weeks ago, it was awesome. Awesome for me because of the fact that the most important thing that I enjoyed about it was seeing so many black men open up. And I think this is why God put this topic on my heart is to be on a platform where you see black men open up and talk about change, talk about their mistakes, talk about them being vulnerable, their lack of understanding, lack of knowledge, and then to see black women as well standing beside them. We're talking about relationships and couples and marriages that they met in high school, they met in middle school, they met in college, and they were still surviving as of 2 weeks ago. And they were sharing their background of different things they had been through. And that was that really grabbed my attention because that's something with black men, especially, we don't see. So when we're talking about healing and vulnerability, it's very important that we open up. It's very important that we do express ourselves, that we find that comfort spot to open up, that we find that um, that support system because everybody can't be your support system. Everybody's not going to understand you. Everybody's not going to be able to um, just be that support that you need. So being vulnerable requires you to, take your time and basically make sure that your circle is really guarded. Your circle has to be really guarded, because we're talking about feelings, we're talking about emotions, we're talking about words, we're talking about expressing, we're talking about opening up. That's serious. So you want to make sure that your circle is very guarded. Okay. And I have my visitor tonight, y'all. Okay. My son may be popping in and out tonight, but I'm going to get through this with him. Again, so here's the thing. I just wanted to read some of the notes that I took. I wanted to read some of the notes that I took from the Love Wins conference, just to give you an idea of what stood out to me. And I have a couple. You have the choice. You have to choose. You choose your results. You choose your results. Okay. That means basically your actions, the things that you do, it determines on what you do. It determines on your actions. It determines on the moves that you make. You have the choice of the results that happen in your life. We know how to cope. This is one that I love. We know how to cope, but we don't know how to repair. We know how to cope through the grief. We learn how to cope through the relationship. We learn how to cope through the addiction. We learn how to cope through the separation, the divorce, whatever challenges that we're facing, but we don't know how to repair. So when we're talking about not being able to repair, we're talking about how do we get on track to learn how to heal? How do we get on track to grab on to learning how to transition ourselves into a better place? Be intentional and spend time with yourself. Be intentional to spend time with yourself. It's something that a lot of us don't want to do. We don't want to be in that corner by ourselves, because of the things that we feel inside, the things that we're going through. But that's your moment. That's your time for you to just learn you, connect with you, grow deeper into you. Know what you want and what your goal is. It's very important to know what you want and know what your goal is. Be real with yourself. Approach vulnerability, what we're talking about tonight. Let God be in the middle and let Him dictate your direction, which is very important. We're talking about that spiritual discernment, which is very important. And we have to address the tough conversations. We have to address the tough conversations, especially in the relationships. When you're talking about trying to repair, trying to recover, trying to get yourself back on track, it calls for some deep conversation, some real conversation, even if you've never done it before. Okay. Anything that shifts you is not in alignment. Anything that shifts you is not in alignment. We need to focus on achieving multiple streams of joy as well as income. That one right there stood out to me. We need to focus on achieving multiple streams of joy as well as income. Single is a position, not a problem. Single is a position, not a problem. It's okay to be by yourself while you're going through. It's okay to be by yourself while you're trying to figure you out. It's okay to not know how to get to the point where you understand yourself. It's okay. But the point of you being willing to try to ask and connect and to have that need of wanting to get to the next stage, that's the greatest thing. Singleness is that time for you to just focus on yourself and get to connect with you. When you're in alignment, love does not feel like an assignment. I love that one. When you are in alignment, the alignment within God's foundation for your life and desire for your life, love does not feel like an assignment. And I love that one. This is the best one that I love throughout the whole conference. Divorce the outcome and commit the process. And I was even thinking about this morning. I was like, man, divorce the outcome and commit to the process. And to me, when I say that, it means stop thinking about how things are going to turn out and be willing to go through the process and take the lessons as you go through. And even when those tempting times come, those discouraging times come, those challenges time come, take those lessons, take them in, and use them to benefit you in the future, so that when something else shows up to that um, to that experience or that level, you'll be a little bit more aware of how to deal with it. Divorce the outcome and commit to the process was the one that I really loved. Learn to stop trusting triggers. Learn to stop trusting triggers. Triggers will produce that fear in us. Trigger will produce that doubt in us. Trigger will stop us from actually exceeding to our full potential. And that's pertaining to the self accountability. And those were some of the notes that I gathered from the conference 2 weeks ago. And it really stood out to me. And like I said, this is why I chose to do healing through vulnerability tonight, because a lot of us don't want to open up. A lot of us don't want to open up. We don't want to talk. We feel that it's best not to tell nobody because nobody going to understand. But here's the thing: when you keep all of that inside and it bundles up and it piles up, it creates negativity. It creates a lot of negativity within you, which you probably don't even understand. And then by the time that you decide that you want to let it out, it probably comes off wrong. And now you're turning people off by your what's the word I'm looking for? By your deliverance. So that's why it's important to be vulnerable, to open up and be willing to talk. Be willing to talk about certain things. Again, back to the definition of vulnerable: in need of special care, support, and protection. When you are beginning to open up to get into that vulnerable state, you can't include everybody in your circle. You can't include everybody in your circle. You have to treat it with caution. You have to treat it with caution. You have to be very particular of who you're going to include in this process, because it is a process. You don't know how this is going to turn out. You don't know, who's going to be acceptive of what you're trying to do, and what you're aiming for. But you got to be guarded about who you allow in your circle. Some of the questions, y'all know I always have questions, but some of the questions that I came up with tonight is: do you agree that vulnerability plays a part of your healing process? For me, as I said a little while ago, I really had to think back this week with coming up with this title. Like, man, that's the state that I was in last year in June. I entered my vulnerable state when I decided I was going to let go and let God, and I did not know what was going to happen, but I knew I wanted a different result. I was vulnerable. I was vulnerable. And I really didn't think that deep. And this is how the conference from 2 weeks ago really made me think. Like, man, that's the state that I was in last year. And I really began to look at the progress that I've made since last year. So, being vulnerable, you have to treat it with care. You have to stay guarded. And if you treat it with care and you stay guarded and you take your time, the benefits will show over time. The benefits will show over time. So, do you agree that vulnerability plays a part of our healing process or your healing process? And then my second question would be: what traits needs to be displayed in order for you to exercise your vulnerability? What traits in the other person, the person that you're looking to for support, the person that you're looking to for the special care or the protection, what traits do they need to display? So something that I did this week to help with this show is because I can explain the woman side. I can explain the woman side, how a woman, relates to a man with vulnerability. But what I could not come up with on my own was, how does a man deal with vulnerability? How does a man deal with being in a vulnerable state and trying to get back on track, especially with love? How does he get back on track? So what I did is I found about, I think it was like 4 men. I asked 4 men, that I could be very open with, and to let them know that, like, I need these results to support my show. I asked 4 men the question of what does it take? What do you have to see in a woman in order for you to open up and be vulnerable to love again? I asked 4 men this question. What traits have to be displayed in a woman in order for you to be able to open up and be able to love again? Here's some of the answers that I got from the men. Some said consistency. Remember, this is 4 different men, 4 to 5 different men. Some said consistency in her own life. He wants to see that she's consistent. He wants to see that she is patient. She's displaying patience. Definitely, I agree with that. She's understanding. Some said peaceful, that she displays peace, not in her own life, but she also brings peace to the relationship. Comfort, the sense of comfort, just feeling that they can rely on that person, again, through expression, through talk, through conversation. Some said trustworthy, loyalty. Some of the ones that I picked up, there were a few that I gathered from, I wrote down from the conference that I went to 2 weeks ago. And one of the ones that stood out to me was same experience and the common hurt. So a man may meet a woman. Let's just say, I think one of the couples at the conference that I went to 2 weeks ago, their story began with both of them were molested. Both of them were molested in their childhood. So by them having that common experience of being molested, that they gained a connection through that, which helped them, which was challenging, of course, but it worked for them as far as the healing process. They worked through the healing, they worked through their recovery, and they worked through helping each other get through that experience. So some men just said, or that particular couple dealt with the same experience, having some things in common. And it was another couple on that panel. I like this one too. It was another couple on that panel that talked about how his wife helped him to realize his brokenness. He didn't think he was broken. He didn't think he was broken. But meeting his wife, she helped him realize his brokenness. And I was like, wow, that was very, very important. So those are some of the characteristics that I got from men, or I got from the panel. Consistency, patience, understanding, having someone that can help you identify your brokenness, having the same experience, common hurt, someone with a peaceful nature, someone that is trustworthy, someone that is loyal, someone that is understanding, and someone that can bring comfort. And again, we are talking about our feelings, we're talking about our words, we're talking about our emotions, and we're talking about our expressions of being vulnerable, whether it's getting on track, whether it's loving yourself, whether it's loving again, whether it's forgiving. And again, as I said in the beginning of this live, it could be grief. Grief is a big one. Grief is a big one. Mental illness is a big one. Divorce and separation is a big one. Of course, breakup, heartbreak, big one. Generational curses, toxic, dysfunction. All of those things, we need to heal from those things. We need to heal from those things. So those were some examples. Next, I wanted to share my aspect as a woman. So then I began to say, okay, this is what the man has said. And I began to think about the woman. So I would direct it to myself, and I began to say, well, Keisha, what was some of the things that you needed to be displayed in order for you to open up and be vulnerable a year ago? And mine was starting over again, um, grasping on, because I was not all the way there, but I wanted to forgive. I wanted to forgive. I wanted to put certain things behind me. I wanted to challenge myself in a way that I never did. And I tell you, a year later, I'm so glad that I did, because I did not know that I had this ability in me to not let past hurt, past experiences keep me stuck for so long. So I began to think about what were some of the things that I needed to see to help me enter my vulnerable state a year ago. And I think I began to look for a level of honesty, a level of honesty. And I'm not just talking about relationships. I'm talking about from men. I'm talking about from family, from friends, because I was all over the place last year. Like every area of my life, there was some brokenness in me. I was dealing with something in friendships and relationships and family. I was dealing with a lot. So I was looking for a point to be honest, and someone that could be honest with me. And even if I didn't fully understand what the person was saying, I was willing to listen so that I can grasp a concept of why things happened the way they did. And then I was able to then display why my actions became as such. So I look for honesty. I look for that honesty. I look for loyalty. Um, Basically to build a line of communication, because that was my spot. I didn't know a year ago. I didn't know how to communicate effectively. I could do a live. I could present myself good. You know, all of that on camera. I could do it 100%. But a year ago, a year and a half ago, when it came to communicating under anger, communicating under pressure, under stress, it was excessive. So I had to do everything all over again. I had to learn all different new tools and things to help me get back on track. So I needed to find that beginning point for me, for somebody that could listen to me and take in what I was saying, even if I didn't sing right. I wanted them to understand this is what I did. And I wanted to hear why their actions played a part. Because a lot of times we're so focused on us, we don't really try to gain the understanding of the other person. So honesty and loyalty, most important. And then supportive. I needed this time around, I needed to see that whoever as I said, that guarded spot, being careful of your circle and who you talk to and who you confide in, I needed to make sure that my support system, that it was on a line of being supportive. Loyalty, honesty, supportive, security was one of the most important things. I needed to know that I needed to feel secure. Again, I needed to feel secure in my feelings, in my words, in my emotions, and the things that I express to whomever it was. And then lastly, I had to feel a sense of comfort. I had to feel that I could depend on the person, no matter if it was male, family, friends. I needed to feel those things. So this week I began to really examine. I really began to reflect like, wow, like it really did take me to do some evaluation. Like I really did have to mentally challenge myself to say, I'm going to go into this, but here's the thing. I had to build some boundaries for myself. And once I built the boundaries for myself, then I could build the boundaries for other people. Because here's the thing, When you are trying to grow, when you are trying to exceed past hurt, past disappointment, or whatever it is, you have to build some boundaries for yourself, because you will fall back into the same trap of manipulation from men, from family, from friends, because it's out there in every area. Everybody does it. You will fall in the same trap of making poor decisions. You will fall in the same trap of doubting yourself. Fear, allowing that stronghold to keep you stuck. So it's important that we build those boundaries for ourselves first of all. And then once we build those boundaries for ourselves, then we can begin to build boundaries for people. I don't care what process you're in, what process you're going through, you need boundaries. Boundaries help. Because here's the thing, when people begin to see, when you move from a place of having no boundaries to a place of having boundaries, people then take you serious, and you really don't have to tell them. All you got to do is show them. And when you begin to show them, they be like, oh, she's serious or he's serious. That's all you got to do. So I began to just think this week about the man side of being vulnerable and him needing to heal and what it takes for him to open up to a woman. And then I began to think about me. What did it take me to be able to open up more? To get on a whole new, different path of learning to love again. Wanting to love again and wanting to move past, past circumstances and stuff. So those were just some of the things that stood out to me about just the need of being vulnerable through healing. That's where it starts. Like that's a beginning point. Like you have to start somewhere. Whether it's starting in the mind, creating a different mindset, which is good, and then building yourself up to be vulnerable. There was a video that I watched this week, and I always talk about this podcast. I always talk about the Dear Future Wifey podcast. I got to see the host. I didn't get to personally, speak to him, but he was at the host of the Dear Future Wifey podcast was at the conference that I went to 2 weeks ago. And so I've been following him for a minute. But this week I watched last week's episode. I watched last week's episode. And if you get a chance, watch it, because it basically talks about this, being vulnerable. It's connecting love, healing, recovery. And the title of that episode is IG Love. It's called IG Love. Dear Future Wifey podcast on YouTube. There's an episode from last week that is called IG Love. And this is a couple. I'm not going to tell you a lot, but this is a couple that talks about and opens up about everything that I'm talking about right now. And when I saw that podcast this week, I said, God, okay, it confirms my live title, Healing Through Vulnerability, because that is what they did. Here's some of the things I will tell you about the podcast, the episode. The episode describes them being in a vulnerable state. It describes them being in a vulnerable state. They talk about the vulnerable state they was in with trying to love again and the challenges that came along with that. They talk about trusting each other, learning how to trust each other with their feelings, with their emotions, with their words, and with the things that they express. This is the one that I never thought about. I never really gave it too much thought. But when I watched it in the podcast, I was like, wow. They talked about practice and action. The lady in the podcast, she talked about how she had already been through therapy before she got in this relationship. And she met the guy on Instagram. Met him on Instagram. They were both had the spiritual background. You can see, if you watch the episode, you'll see that God played a part of the way that the relationship moved. But she speak on how she was practicing what she learned in therapy. She was practicing what she had challenged herself she would do if the opportunity ever came again. So even though she was in this relationship, she was practicing everything that she had learned from therapy, that she had put together for herself. She had did self evaluation. She had did self reflection. She had took the time to really grab onto, where did I go wrong? I will never do that again. She built those boundaries. She built those standards. She built those limitations for herself. I'm going to tell you, when I seen that video this week, I said, God, that's confirmation. I'm supposed to do my live. And the title is supposed to be Healing from Vulnerability. And then lastly, they talk about being guarded, through the process of vulnerability. People don't realize it. Like, again, I will keep mentioning these things. Addiction, mental illness is a big one. Grief is a big one. Separation, divorce is a big one. Heartache, breakup is a big one. You know, these are the things that people have trouble, are really struggling, to recover from. But how do they recover? You can't recover if you don't open up. And you gotta open up. If I think back to where I was 6 years ago, I had to open up to some level. Even if opening up meant the first time I got down on my knees and said, God, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to trust you this time, because I have absolutely no level of understanding of this. But what I do know, my self-worth, I do know my value. And I promise God that if he got me through that situation, and I said this repeatedly, daily, weekly, monthly, if you get me through this, I will spend the rest of my life telling people that you did it and showing them how good that you are. And this is why I do what I do. Because had I not chose to open up, had I not even chose to be honest with God, first of all, I had to be honest with myself before I even went to God. I had to be honest with myself to say, Keisha, you need help. Because if you don't get the help, you might not be around for your kids. If you don't get the help, you're going to lose it. And we talking about losing my 14-year-old son through domestic violence by somebody I was dating. We're talking about grief for 6 years now. Had I not chose to open up, first of all, to Keisha, and realize my worth and my value, and realize that despite the decisions and the mistakes that I feel that I made, I'm telling you, healing wouldn't be a part of my journey. I would probably still be stuck. Yes, I understand losing your mother, your father, your best friend, your child, of anything, your child, anybody. I understand it hurts. I understand it hurts. But you have to find strength to get up out that spot. Even if it means making them proud in some form. That you're not going to let that addiction, that you're not going to let that situation, you're not going to let them leaving or passing away or walking away or mistreating you. Abuse is something that I didn't say throughout this whole life, but abuse is another big one. These are all issues that we have to find a sense of pulling up from. It's easily said. For me to say it is easy. But here's the thing. This is about commitment. This is about effort. This is about dedication to yourself. Why? Because you deserve it. You deserve it. No one deserves to be stuck in any of those situations. I don't care what you did to get there. You don't deserve it. And you have the ability. You have the ability. This morning I said in my video 3 things: responsibility, capability, responsibility, capability, and accountability. Those 3 things you're responsible for. You are accountable for your own actions. And I said it in one of my videos before. If you choose to stay in the same place, stop complaining. Stop complaining. If you choose to stay in the same place, stop looking at the next person and talking bad about them. You choose to stay in that place that you are. You have the ability to open up your mouth. You have the ability. You don't even have to walk out your house now to grab your cell phone, turn on a computer, grab that tablet, and Google some type of therapy, some type of support group, some type of coaching, some type of stress reliever. You have the ability. You're capable of it. And you are responsible for your own actions. It's easily said. And I hate to put it so, I hate to put it this way, but we don't realize when we are in the point of being stuck in that situation, how much we are cutting our own throat, how much we are lacking our own potential. Again, had I not pushed myself 6 years ago to get to where I am now, I would not know that this Keisha could be molded. I wouldn't know that this Keisha could be birthed. I wouldn't know that this Keisha could touch so many people. And that's the most exciting point of healing, is recovering and seeing your effort, seeing your determination. Like, man, I didn't even think I was going to make it. But to see your breakthrough, I'm telling you, each day, I'll be like, man, Keisha, you did it. Sometimes I just sit and think, what if I didn't do that? What if I gave up? What if I didn't believe in myself? Like, where would I be? What if I chose to have a baby? Here's the thing. What if I had DeAndre and I was still broken? And I never worked on my, I take that back. I was broken when I had DeAndre. But what if I never challenged my brokenness? Because I was dealing with grief when I had DeAndre. And because I was dealing with grief with DeAndre, I got involved in a relationship and I was pregnant in 2 months. See, I'm not afraid to admit these things because I realized where I went wrong. So the point of that, I was going through grief that I did not have control of, that was really kind of taking me in a little bit, and I wasn't exercising to my full potential. I was there, but I wasn't really there. Mentally, I had to get myself back on track. Mentally, I had to challenge myself harder. because I saw myself now falling, getting pregnant 2 months after I met DeAndre's dad. Was like, oh no, we can't slip back into that person. We can't slip back into the old Keisha. And I'll be honest with you, I think that that's when reality started to set in. When I found out I was pregnant, I was like, oh boy, I can't go down this road again. I can't let this grief, this brokenness, past relationships. Nah, I gotta do. I gotta do better. But what if I never challenge myself through those emotions, through those feelings? What if I never challenge myself and I stayed in that spot? How would that affect my child and me being a mother to him? Would I be able to be the best mother? And sometimes that's what, when we don't heal, that's what happens. We don't heal and we get into these situations, we get into these relationships, we have these kids, we make these decisions. And now we ask the question, how did I get here? Or why me? But it's because we didn't challenge ourselves. It's because we didn't take the time to deal with ourselves. We didn't take the time to evaluate and do some self-reflection of ourselves and deal with the inner part of us. Because the outer part of us could look good. We could be made up, dressed up, snatched up now, But if the inner is no good, what does the outer mean? Because at the end of the day, you're still broken. You're still broken. I had sold some other stuff. I'm going to try to run through this in 10 minutes because I have 10 minutes. And this is very important stuff. I Googled this week. This is something else that God put on my heart to do. I Googled this information this week. Being vulnerable involves these things. Being vulnerable involves asking for what you need. Being vulnerable involves asking for what you need. And that means understanding your needs and being true with yourself. Number two, being willing to expose your feelings, which more so is building effective communication, as I talked about earlier. Number three, say what you need, directly stating your needs. Say what you need, directly stating your needs. Question, are you even aware of your needs? Have you taken the time to really think about what you need in order to get to where you want to be or to achieve that goal or that aim or to pursue or advance to your high potential? Do you understand what it's going to take? And number four, express what you really think. Expressing your full point of view. Here's that thing, like I said earlier, being able to give and receive feedback without being defensive. Because I could receive it, but I was defensive. I had to learn how to not be defensive. And then the last one, slow down and be present. Dealing with the right now. And that was one of the big things for me. I would always try to plan things out, worry about what might happen in 6 months, a year down the line. And I had to get to the point where I just started to deal with the right now. I had to begin to ask some questions. Where am I right now? What's going on with me right now? How are things affecting me right now? And then I began to put my plan together based on those three things. What am I feeling right now? Why do I feel this way right now? What's causing this right now? And I began to put my plan together based on those things. These are all tips and tools to help you create a safe place when you're trying to exercise vulnerability. Again, the word vulnerable means in the need of special care, support, and protection. Everybody can't be included in this process. Treat it with care. With 8 minutes left, treat it with care. Treat it with care. Here's a question with ending this live. Can two broken people heal together? And God has challenged me with this question, because if you would have asked me this question maybe 6 months to a year ago, I would say, oh no. But through challenging myself and, being the type of person that's eager to learn and always looking for things to um, gain more knowledge and understand, I would say yes. And here's why. Because it depends on the effort of the two people. As I talked about that couple earlier, that couple that shared the same experiences of being sexually assaulted, they shared that common experience of being um, sexually assaulted at a young age. That drew a connection. But it was the effort of both of them that allowed them to be successful. Okay? Remember these three things. The three phases that you must go through with 7 minutes left. Self-love, which regards to your singleness. When you are at a state of trying to love yourself and needing to love yourself and willing to maintain and grab onto that whole aspect of it, sometimes you just got to be by yourself. You got to enter that singleness stage. And even if you're in a relationship or a marriage, sometimes it just calls for just some time for you to step aside and connect with you a little deeper. But that singleness in some form is very important, because we don't want to be validated through other people. We want to be validated. We want that validation to come from us, because when it comes from other people, when you no longer get that, it's going to make you feel some type of way. The second phase is wholeness. With 6 minutes left, I will say this, because I challenge myself to do research on love and relationships and healing. One thing that I have learned above all is a lot of relationships are not working. A lot of marriages are not working. A lot of friendships are not working. A lot of people are broken. Why? Because the lack of becoming whole. And that's healing. Relationships are falling apart. Marriages are falling apart. People are separating, divorcing, all of those things. Because nobody wants to challenge yourself to become whole. And that's what we're talking about tonight, healing. And then the last one, which is very important, and I just stepped into this whole phase, spiritual discernment. Allowing God to be a part of your journey, allowing God to guide your process and to direct you. Much needed phases. Self-love, which regards to that single time. If you're single and you're by yourself, take that time to get to know you, understand you, your needs, your desires, your wants. But if you're in a relationship and a marriage already, find some time to just deal with you outside of that marriage, outside of that relationship, outside of that dating partner. Understand you. It helps. And they will see the difference in you. And it may, it may help them. And then wholeness. being able to heal. You want to love again. Get yourself, challenge yourself to become better and love again. Don't love again in the same broken spot, because you're going to get the same results you did last time. The partner changed, but you don't change. If I'm broken and I'm with a partner, I'm going to get the same effects that I did because I'm broken. Doesn't matter how many partners I get. If I don't change myself, I can't expect for a better outcome. And then lastly, that spiritual discernment with 3 minutes left, which is allowing God to lead your process, allowing God to guide your steps. I seen this today as I was researching some stuff to play a part of this live. And I think I don't know what I was watching, but they were talking about the quote that says, iron sharpens iron. I know we've all heard that before. Iron sharpens iron. And they had the passage of scripture, Proverbs 27:17. And I began to say, okay, let me look into this phrase a little bit more. Here's what it says. Wise people should be questioning, encouraging, coaching, and challenging each other. Wise people should be questioning, encouraging, coaching, and challenging each other. Ending this live, I would say if we all do that, try to help each other, try to build each other, try to empower each other, try to encourage each other, try to uplift each other. You got to start somewhere. I know you don't want to talk about what happened. I know it hurts. I know it's hard to forgive. I know they left you, they abandoned you. I know the feelings, the emotions that arise every time you think about it. But in order for you to get past that, you got to find an outlet. And an outlet is simply a form of healing. And just by you making that one step to speak up and speak out, you're going to enter that phase of getting yourself back on track. You're going to enter that phase of gaining your confidence. You're going to enter that phase of understanding you again, forgiving again, loving again, feeling good about yourself, seeking self-love, self-happiness, no longer with those insecurities, self-esteem, past issues, disappointment, shame, guilt, no longer with those things hold you back. I pray that this live will basically encourage somebody to step into their healing process. Again, grief, disappointment, abandonment, mental illness, abuse, addiction, separation, divorce, finances, mental breakdown. So people are being broken. People need to be healed from so many situations. But here's the thing. Nobody can do it for you. You got to do it for yourself. And the most important thing is you got to want it for yourself. And when you want it for yourself, you'll do everything that it possibly takes. I don't care how far it seems, the outcome seems far away. But when you want it for yourself, you'll dedicate your best effort. And when you dedicate your best effort, here's the thing, you can't go wrong. So speak up, speak out about your pain. Again, be guarded, protected, set those boundaries, build those standards, but find a way to move past whatever is breaking you, whatever has damaged you. Find a way to move past it. You deserve better. You are better. and you will be better. I'm going to pray with ending this live. Dear God, I come to you tonight just to say thank you. Thank you again for the words and the topic that you have given to me on tonight. God, I pray that this live will extremely help somebody, just challenge them mentally to move past their brokenness, to move past that hurt spot, and to begin to think about what can I do to approach my healing stage. God, allow them to see that they can be better if they do better, if they want to do better, if they commit to better, if they put in the effort, if they dedicate their best. Allow them to see that if they include you in the process, they have trust in you, faith in you, and they walk with you throughout the journey, throughout the process, throughout the stage, throughout the faith, that you'll bring so much into their life that they never imagined. God, I pray that I may be an example for someone who may have such low doubt, such low confidence in themselves, that's allowing their past to keep them stuck. I pray that I may constantly be on their mind. They may constantly say that if she can do it, I can do it. I continue to pray that you use me to be an example, to be a vessel, to be a tool for those who are being challenged, for those who are struggling, and for those who don't believe that they can do it. I pray that you continue to give me the visions. I pray that you continue to give me the words. I pray that you continue to give me the commitment to do what you have called me to do, to give my best, to be my best, and to deliver my best. These and all other blessings I ask in your name. Amen. Thank you tonight for joining me for this Love Talk with Keisha. Share this with someone that you know that may be in a dark spot and may need to challenge yourself a little bit more. And I will see you again for the next Love Talk with Keisha very soon. Good night. I love you. God willing, next time.